Hey there, death defiers. Precognitive. Why did I use such big words this week?
I don't know. Is that how you spell defiers?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey there, death defiers. Precognitives, grim reapers, and fugitives of death.
Welcome to our first episode of not only Black History Month, but also Women in Horror Month.
Today, we are talking about the 2000 James Wong film, Final Destination.
This movie was written by Jeffrey Reddick with help from James Wong and Glenn Morgan.
Reddick is also known for his other work on all of the Final Destination movies and horror movies including Dead Awake, The Final Wish, and Don't Look Back.
Trigger warnings for this movie include gore, and there's also some mention of suicide. Taglines for this movie include, "Most people have dreams. For Alex, this is real."
So stupid. Face your deepest fears before they face you.
I think this one is my favorite, too. The death is the final destination. Boarding starts now. So silly. And I thought the Twilight Zone was interesting. The Twilight Zone tagline.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, in the best twisted tradition of the Twilight Zone.
Makes sense, though. Mm-hmm. We'll get more into that and how it's related to Twilight Zone later. The movie starts with Alex Browning's high school class about to go to France? I think it's France. Aboard Flight 180.
Yeah, Voulet. It's like a French airline.
Voulet. It's like voila.
Yeah, sure.
It means...
Okay.
I don't know. It's volet. It's like if voila, or a brulee had a baby.
Wow.
And they named it that.
Okay. Once they get on the plane, Alex has like a brief moment where he doesn't quite fall asleep, right? Or,
no, he's not really falling.
It's like he almost touches something and it like triggers this like vision.
Yeah. It just kind of happens.
Yeah.
He's kind of like in a daze.
And he basically sees all of the events that trigger this horrific plane crash. And it's very intense. It's a really intense scene. But then he comes back to reality, and it's like a few seconds prior to when the premonition happened. So he's able to like see, like, oh, the handle falls off of this tray. That's what happened in the premonition. Like, oh, that person sneezed. That's what happened before. So he feels that is really going to happen.
And it's it's like the latch for the little the little seat table thing that's in front of you.
The tray,
it comes off, and that's when he starts to freak out and scream and panic.
Yeah. And he basically gets dragged off the plane. So he starts saying the plane's gonna crash, and so of course, like, they think that this fucking idiot kid is doing something or high or whatever, and they pull him off, and a few of his classmates follow and one of the teachers. And this is the same number in the order he was supposed to die. And
there's also a lot of symbolism of the number 180, which is the flight number that they were all supposed to die on. Like the scene where his clock says 1 and then it flips to 180. But there's just 180s and 7s throughout this entire movie. I even read things that I was like, is that true? I don't know. Like, apparently when they, what's her name, gets hit by the bus. Apparently. So joining Alex is Todd, Terry, their teacher Valerie Luton, and students Billy and Clear.
Clear Rivers.
Clear Rivers.
What a choice for that name.
And basically, they all think Alex is insane.
Yeah, and Carter, who his girlfriend comes off as well, was taken off the plane the same time as Alex because trying to, like, subdue him, like, starts fucking hitting him like an idiot, jock, asshole character guy. So.
But yeah, the rest of them believe Alex real quick when that plane takes off and then almost immediately explodes. I like the addition of, like, the windows shattering in that scene. It's pretty good. It helps really sell it.
Get pregnant. Ending, Alex actually dies during the electrocution scene, and it cuts forward to Carter being alive as well with Clear, and she has Alex's baby. And when she has the baby, she suddenly assumes his ability to see death and see the future. Like, the baby leaves that behind.
Because he's not a part of the plan. Or is he? We'll find out. Get made, so we're never gonna...
It's silly. They made... There are a lot of really cool effects in this movie, starting with the teacher, who was played by Kristen Cloak. I'm just going to keep...
And then we get to meet FBI agent Shrek.
Yeah. Yep, Shrek.
And then cue 5 minutes of Shrek jokes, because I do that every time I watch this movie.
We just love Shrek.
I wouldn't say love Shrek.
We do love Shrek. Not this Shrek. We love the one and only Shrek, our Lord and Savior.
The king of the swamp.
Yeah.
But these two FBI agents start to interrogate all the students. Like, did you put a bomb on the plane? How did you know this was going to happen?
And he basically, of course, cannot get any clear answers because, he's just a kid and this is the first time this has ever happened. So they basically send all the kids home while, staying in town, essentially, to keep an eye on them. From here, the story flashes forward to about a month later when the school has
specifically 39
I know, it says 39.
days.
I was going to say 39.
I don't think 39 has anything to do with the rest of the movie.
I think the only number that is significant is the 180 that you see, all over the place. And, it's the time and all that shit.
And 7.
And 7.
There's 7 of them. Mm-hmm. There's just so many. Now, anytime I see a number come up, I'm just like, wait, but does that? How many times did this person? How many times did?
39 times 7 is 180.
39 divided by 7 is this, and when you add the number of fires in this movie, it equals 7. That's just a whole thing. Charlie, it's just going to be Charlie Day with the yarn all over again.
The spaghetti.
Charlie Day with the spaghetti.
You know.
He's got the spaghetti all taped up on his wall.
It's 30-ish days later, and at this point the school has erected a memorial statue for all of the students and the faculty that died.
Yes. I was like, what the hell does it look like?
Mm-hmm. But here there's this little ceremony where they all take roses, the survivors drop roses at the foot of the memorial. And there's a lot of suspicious eyes on Alex during this whole time.
It's after the ceremony that death shows up. I wonder why he waited 39 days. There's got to be a reason for it. Some biblical thing, or I don't know. Something.
Yeah.
But what happens is Death is not he's not like Michael Myers. He's not a skeleton in a black robe with a scythe chopping the kids up. It's a series of... It's accidents,
circumstances that are triggered in a certain order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Todd is going to shower, and the water is, running on the floor, and then it
causes him to slip, and then, the wind had knocked over, a line in the bathroom, so
there's
caught.
the line for the, drying the clothes in the shower, and then he ends up slipping, and then he gets strangled by this pole,
invisible force
the
that's
invisible
pulling
force.
it,
because I think with him it's the only time you really see this force. It's kind of like a blur that moves.
And in this first death with Todd as well, you see Alex finding out that it's going to happen because the newspaper gets shredded and it says Todd's name, and then it's from here when he rushes over that he realizes that they're not safe.
They're no longer... Yeah, they may have survived, but something is trying to take them anyways.
Yeah, because there's that whole scene with the fan where the newspaper gets sucked in and spits Todd out at him.
That kind of stuff is so terrifying.
We kind of had a weird one today.
What?
With 6 Feet Under.
What happened?
That they were watching Powerpuff Girls and then he was like, I'm playing Mortal Kombat.
And that had just happened earlier.
Because you were I got this. It's Mortal Kombat. Oh, were you watching Powerpuff Girls?
If we die today, what is today's date? Today's February 7th. If we die today, Final Destination is real.
Okay.
Except we didn't get to survive anything cool.
No.
It was lame. I don't know. As we mentioned before, that there was mention of suicide in this movie, and that is what happens here with Todd. The cops and FBI say it must have been a suicide. And
if I remember correctly, Todd's brother was on the plane, right? And so... They thought that he was there was legitimate reasoning for it potentially being a suicide situation.
Although the cops say this, Clear and Alex do not believe them. And they actually sneak into the mortician's corner.
Mortuary?
Mortuary? words about death and people that work with bodies.
Mm-hmm.
They sneak in to get a look at Todd for themselves.
And this is where we meet Tony Todd, aka Candyman, as the mortician. And he, of course, tells them, like, death has a plan. And it's very ominous. And he's like this gigantic man with the most booming voice. And it would scare the shit out of anyone.
While they're there, they also... What freaks them out the most is not only seeing their dead friend, but also the fact that they see, like, not defensive wounds, but they see his, like, on his hands, there's signs that he was tugging at the string or wire, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they now know that something killed him.
Right.
He was trying to stop it. He wasn't, like, trying to die.
Available on Amazon and Hulu. Wait, no, YouTube, not Hulu. You have to rent it.
It's on YouTube and Prime.
Yes.
You can rent them.
It's not free anywhere.
Be on the lookout. This Friday, we're going to be releasing a minisode.
This minisode is about something that's very important to both of us because we love horror, but it's really important to know what you're getting into, in my opinion, especially for people that are sensitive to certain subjects, which is why we always start the top of our episodes with trigger warnings for everything we can think of, so that if you are not in the right state to hear about something in that subject matter, you can know right off the bat. So there's a couple different websites, organizations we're just going to talk about that contribute to that.
Yeah, and there's a few different websites we're going to be discussing. But yeah,
Alex and Clear at this point gather all of the survivors, and I think the teacher as well.
They try,
but she doesn't come. I think she's very fucked up from this situation
because she's trying to leave.
Yeah, she quits her job. Quits her job as a teacher and all that. But they gather at a cafe where Alex, like a crazy person, explains how death has a plan. He's figured out. I think at this point he's figured out the order. Right? Or
I don't know if he's figured out the order, but he's figured out, like...
It's coming back around.
It's coming back around. And this is one of the more gruesome scenes. And why is she going the street?
Because I think at this point, Carter is being a dick, and she's like, you need to calm down, let's go home. And she's, like, backing away, being, like, trying to get him to come with her.
And she gets hit by a bus.
Like, just demolished.
Yeah, they all get sprayed with blood.
Yeah.
Like, it's... Splashdown at SeaWorld.
Mm-hmm. It's after Terry's death that Alex sees a news special showing the path of the explosion, so he's able to figure out who was sitting where, and he can determine the order of who's going next, and he realizes that the teacher is next on death's list, so to speak. I
lied before. I'm sorry, guys. This is the most gruesome one. This one is so, like... extended.
Mm-hmm. This one's very long.
It's like Death was having fun because he's a sick guy. Because how does it start?
It starts by like
boiling tea.
And then she needs some fucking vodka.
And then she needs the vodka.
And it cracks the cup because of the temperature difference between the tea and the vodka. And then she drips that into the computer.
The vodka, yes.
The vodka.
And
it's, of course, leaving, like, a trail because it has, like, a little drip. So she's leaving alcohol over the floor.
She must have got, like, some good vodka. Like, this is, like, 180 proof.
It's just rubbing alcohol.
She's just drinking gasoline. But anyways, it hits the computer, and then it ignites her house on fire.
Yeah, because the computer sparks, and it hits the vodka trail.
And then doesn't...
When the computer explodes,
it hits her in the
she gets hit with glass from the screen.
Right. And then she goes into the kitchen, blood trailing and spraying all over the place. And then she's like on the ground trying to grab like a towel.
And it's on top of the butcher block.
And then a knife stabs her.
Yep. It's a lot.
She would have died from the glass in
and
her
the house is on fire.
The house didn't need to be on fire.
Right.
And then she gets stabbed again.
Yeah.
So this is the most gruesome. This is the one where it's like, man, Death kind of fucked up.
He hated her.
Yeah. What did she do to you? Did she break your heart? Like, what happened, Death? Do you need to talk about it?
But Alex arrives and, like, sees that the house is on fire and goes in to try to save her.
And,
and leaves bloody footprints all over the place. I think he pulls the knife out or something.
No, he touches it, though.
Yeah, he gets his fingerprints on everything. And then he's seen by one of the other kids, the 35-year-old adult man that's
Stifler.
playing a 17-year-old. Yeah.
Stifler from, why do I know that? But I don't know the name of the movie. Is it American Pie?
I think
feel
so.
like it.
I've never seen American Pie, but
I've never even seen it.
he's in that movie.
I just know him. I've seen, like, clips of him.
Yeah. Anyways, he catches Alex running out of the house.
Talk about bad timing. He's always, like, 30 seconds too late.
Yeah, when they all get back together, they're all in Carter's car, and he's being wild.
He's fucking lost it.
Yeah, because like he just saw his girlfriend die, and now
Yeah.
he's believing that this is real, and so he thinks he can't die because
he's
it's
like,
not
Jesus,
his.
take the wheel.
Yeah,
Takes his hands off.
Right.
And starts speeding.
yeah, because he thinks that it's not his turn, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter what he does. And then just like as an added measure, he goes to the train tracks.
Right.
And his car stops. He stops his car on the train tracks. And wouldn't you know, here comes a train.
Right. So of course everyone else gets out of the car, and they're like, "You're an idiot. Get out of the car." And he's like, "Nope, I can't die. Can't
He's like,
die.
"I can't
Won't
die.
happen."
Won't happen. And then his car won't start.
Or his car won't start, and then his seatbelt gets stuck.
Yeah, and then his door gets jammed.
And Alex ends up dragging him like out of the driver's side window.
Yeah. Actually, this is a moment where he has good timing. Because it's literally 2 seconds. He pulls him out, and then the car gets destroyed.
As far as where to watch.
Be on the lookout.
This minisode.
Hey there, death fires. Precognitive. Why did I use such big words this week?
Is that how you say it? Okay.
Hey there, death-defying natives, grim reapers, and fugitives.
Well, not only Black History Month, but also Women in Horror Month.
Today, we are talking about the 2000 James Wong film, Final Destination.
This movie was written by Jeffrey Reddick with help from James Wong and Glenn Morgan.
Reddick is also known for his other work on action movies.
I love this next part too, where Billy's like, "I'm staying away from you, man. You're next." And this is where we determine that, like, you know, death can skip you. And that, like, piece of metal just flies up from the train tracks and decapitates him.
But it cuts his head
Yeah,
in the middle?
like at the nose.
Yeah, at
it's
the
not the
nose.
neck.
It's
Yeah.
so...
Cuts his head in half.
I guess it's different.
Yeah. So it's not technically
I
decapitation.
think it still is.
If it's the middle of your head.
I think so. I think the more important thing with a decapitation is that your brain is gone.
I'm gonna look it up.
Hey Google, what's the textbook
It
definition?
says cut off the head.
Textbook has two different
No, not the definition of textbook.
Textbook can be used
No,
as a noun to
Google,
Hey Google,
stop.
stop.
a book used as a single word for the study of a
Well.
particular subject.
Hey Google,
Fine.
what is the definition of decapitation?
Decapitation is used as a noun to mean the action of cutting off the head of a person or animal, as in England's last public decapitation. Do you want to hear how decapitation is spelled?
No, thank you. Even more freaked out now. They decide to stay in, like... It's Clear's cabin, right? Not Clear? Is it? Whose cabin is it?
It is Clear.
It is
'Cause-
Clear's cabin?
Yeah. Because remember, she has this whole sob story about how she's kind of an orphan.
They try to, it's not baby-proof, murder-proof?
Yeah. Murder-proof.
Murder-proof.
Death-proof.
Death-proof, this cabin. And it's in this cabin that Alex remembers that they actually changed seats. A couple of them changed seats in the plane. And he actually realizes that Clear is next.
Yeah, and the scene is wild. There's like a crazy storm. A power line gets like knocked down. It's just shooting sparks everywhere. And Alex pretty much gets there as she's trapped in her car with like a live wire on the hood.
But she saved that dog.
She did. That was the most important thing. She got him out of there. That
That's
good
the
boy.
only thing that matters.
And at this point too, like there's this whole chase scene with the FBI and Alex. And yeah, Alex ends up grabbing the wire because it would force it to skip Clear. Was basically the logic, and saves her so she can escape.
And he explodes when he grabs it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because there's the car's like leaking gas.
Yeah.
So it does explode, and he like blows up into the garage.
He gets
or whatever.
like blown away from like the force. Yeah. And
there's also a lot of symbolism of the number 180, which is the flight number that they were all supposed to die on. Like the scene where his clock says 1 and then it flips to 180. But there's just 180s and 7s throughout this entire movie. I even read things that I was like, is that true? I don't know. Like apparently when they, what's her name, gets hit by the bus, apparently the 7 on somebody's... So joining Alex is Todd, Terry, their teacher Valerie Luton, and students Billy and Clear.
Clear Rivers.
And then is this where it's like 6 months later? Mm-hmm. Because they're the last two.
And Carter.
Oh yeah, Carter. Oh, because he goes. That's right. Yeah. So here it's 6 months later, and they're in Paris because they
went on that trip that they couldn't go on before.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're basically celebrating the fact that they made it.
They cheated death.
They did it.
And Alex at this point is still just like very paranoid and constantly like bringing up other points of how maybe it's not over, and this, that, and the other thing. And something that we didn't mention so far, too, is that whenever Death is, like, on his way, that John Denver song comes on, and that's what happens in this cafe, too, is that there's a guy playing the guitar, like a street performer, and he starts playing that song, and then they're like, oh, no. When Alex hears the song, he starts to freak out and gets, like, dangerously close to the road. Of course, another fucking bus is coming, and Carter pushes him out of the way, thus skipping Alex again.
Oh, shit. John Denver died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's in our notes, but I forgot.
It is, yeah.
So that's definitely why they picked John Denver.
Yeah.
This makes sense, full circle. Mm-hmm. And then that sign swings back.
Yeah, because when Carter pushed Alex out of the way, the bus swerved to avoid hitting them and hits like a building that knocks that neon sign down.
Oh, and it cuts before you actually see it, but it's big.
Yeah.
He's smashed.
And it's Carter being like, then who's next? Who's next? And then just cuts. Because, he's just a kid, and this is the first time this has ever happened. So they basically send all the kids home while, like, staying in town, essentially, to keep an eye on them. From here, the story flashes forward to about a month later when the school has like
specifically 39
I know, it says 39.
days.
I was going to say 39.
Oh, yeah. I don't think 39 has anything to do with the rest of the movie.
I think the only number that is significant is the 180 that you see, like...
Which means there are 2 survivors, Alex and Clear. These are the last 2 remaining survivors of Flight 140.
180.
180! So many numbers in this movie.
Mm-hmm. I just thought this was really interesting, and I did not fact check this or confirm that it is correct. But apparently, the Chinese title of this movie is The Death God Comes.
This movie is based on the story of a Twilight Zone episode. The episode is simply titled 22. In the episode, a woman is in the hospital after suffering from exhaustion. She's a dancer. And she starts to have a reoccurring nightmare that gets more and more detailed every time. The day she is supposed to fly home, she begins to experience some of the events from her dreams, and at the last moment decides to not board the plane. Shortly after takeoff, the plane explodes, and it is revealed that her flight was number 22, the same number as her hospital room.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones, like, she keeps waking up at 222 and stuff like that. It's very number heavy.
Yeah.
But it's really funny that we just casually were watching The Twilight Zone and got sucked into this episode, and then we were like, holy shit, that's Final Destination. But in this Twilight Zone episode, she doesn't know what the bad thing is. She just keeps... Yeah. She has a nightmare, but she doesn't see what happens, like, at the end of it.
Yeah, it's like as she is about to board the plane, she gets thirsty, a clock dings, and I think it's like something breaks, and then some woman says a specific phrase.
She like sees a nurse or something.
And then she has a panic attack and refuses to get on the plane. And then it's like the same thing though. They're watching the plane out of the window and then it blows up.
And we should find that graphic because it is pretty great.
What?
Of the plane exploding in that.
I don't actually remember what it looks like.
It's just like, it looks like they shined a flashlight on like a toy plane and then shut it off. I'll find it.
Originally, this wasn't even supposed to be a movie. It was supposed to be an episode of The X-Files that Reddick had written. Although the episode was dropped, a colleague at New Line Cinema persuaded Reddick to write it as a feature-length film. Later co-writers Wong and Morgan became interested in the script and agreed to rewrite and direct the film. Marking Wong's film directing debut, Wong said, "We want to do for planes and air travel what Jaws did for sharks and swimming."
It's a pretty good quote.
It is, because I think about it every time I go on a plane.
And the second one more so, I think, than this one, the logs.
Yeah.
You never are going to drive behind that fucking van with the fucking logs on it again after watching the second version of this.
I will. I purposefully will change lanes.
It's like a meme.
Much of the news footage shown is actual footage from the July 1996 explosion and crash of TWA Flight 800 off East Moriches, Long Island, New York. So most of that news footage was real.
That's so weird.
The original plan in this movie was to have death as a much more obvious entity in the film, like it was in Todd's death. There's the scene with Todd seeing a shadow in the mirror and the water running back into the toilet as if to cover its tracks. After Todd's death, the writers decided to have death simply be more of like accidents.
I think it was a good choice.
Yeah. I think it was like the way they decided to do it was perfect, because it's just kind of like this is how it is. Mm-hmm. This is, you don't really see death, but you just see the shadow. Yeah. But then you don't need to see it again. You get the idea. Mm-hmm.
Like we mentioned earlier, the music played throughout the film that predicts when death is coming is by John Denver, who actually died in a plane crash. I know a lot of his songs because my mom fucking loves him. Like, has all of his records. Wow. She has a purse with his face on it. She loves him.
I did not know that. There's a lot of symbolism in this movie, some more obvious than others. But, for example, there's the scene where Alex is in his bedroom reading a magazine and he sees that owl. That owl always freaks me out. Yeah. Owls always freak me out because of that Alien movie.
The fourth kind.
I don't want to talk about it right now. But owls have always been like an ominous sign of death.
Yeah, this movie is all about like the symbolism. And back to the numbers, Alex was almost killed 7 times throughout the first movie. And this is the same number in the order he was supposed to die. And
there's also a lot of symbolism of the number 180, which is the flight number that they were all supposed to die on. Like the scene where his clock says 1 and then it flips to 180. But there's just 180s and 7s throughout this entire movie. I even read things that I was like, is that true? I don't know. Like apparently when they, what's her name, gets hit by the bus, apparently the blood forms a 7 on somebody's cheek. I was like, oh, I'm sure it's true.
Personally, I like that because I like to look for it, but I don't know. This film had a major impact on the horror film audience in general, and it earned the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film in 2000. There were a couple storylines that almost happened that we disagree on. There's an alternate ending that I think is horrible, but Sean thinks would have been cool.
For a different movie, not this movie.
So that scene on the beach where Clear and Alex have that whole heart-to-heart where she talks about like her parents and blah, blah, blah. In the original script, I believe they shot it. They were supposed to, quote unquote, consummate their relationship and have sex on the beach. And Clear was supposed to get pregnant. And then in an alternate ending, Alex actually dies during the electrocution scene. And it cuts forward to Carter being alive as well with Clear. And she has Alex's baby. And when she has the baby, she suddenly assumes his ability to see death and see the future. Like the baby leaves that behind.
Because he's not a part of the plan. Or is he? Well, the movie didn't get made, so we're never going to find out.
Yeah. It's silly. There are a lot of really cool effects in this movie, starting with the teacher, who was played by Kristen Cloak. And I'm just going to keep calling her the teacher because I can't remember the character name.
That's fine.
All right, the teacher, played by Kristen Cloak.
There's only one teacher that gets killed. So
Well, the one dies on the plane.
yeah, but it's not brutal. You know who the teacher is in this
Whatever.
movie.
So as far as achieving this whole scene, which, like we mentioned earlier, is really long and gruesome, for the part where she has the glass in her neck and she's on the ground, she was actually under a faux wooden floor with a silicone body double on top of her. So it was just her actual head sticking out,
they do
fake
that all the
body.
time.
Right. And a piece of glass was placed in her prosthetic neck and yanked away with a wire that was digitally erased in post, and then they played that backwards
Oh, so it
to
looks
get
like
it
it's
like
stabbing
going in.
in
Yeah.
instead of coming out. Looks good though.
One of the other things that I thought was really funny, there's that scene where Carter elbows Billy in the face, and they kind of get into it in the car. This is actually written in because Billy came to the set with like a pimple or something on his lip. And so they had this scene happen so that they could just cover it with like a little bit of blood.
The exterior for the teacher's house was actually fake. It was built in 5 days, and the residents of Vancouver where it was shot didn't want them to light it on fire because they thought it was a nice-looking house. The plane scene was created inside a very large soundstage. They had to use a 3-ton hydraulic gimbal to make the plane set actually shake. Special effects supervisor Terry Sonderhoff was quoted as saying, "We spent 2 months building this central set piece that weighs about 45,000 pounds and holds 89 people. This set was used for all of the inside the plane sequences, and it could be shifted on the gimbal to create a pitching movement of up to 45 degrees. It could rock side to side and go 60 degrees front to back." That is actually kind of terrifying to be in.
Yeah, that actually would move a lot.
Another quote here, they said, "The screams of the cast inside the gimbal made it appear more real. You walk into the studio..." Wong is quoted as saying, "You walk into the studio and there's a huge gimbal with a plane on top and you think, what have I done? I was afraid we were going to have 40 extras vomiting."
Oh, I would throw up for sure.
Oh yeah. Interestingly, the plane set was later torn down and changed to be the Clear's top floor. So with all the storm shaking, they could just do it there. That was very smart. Saved a lot of money. For the plane explosion, they actually used a miniature. The model was extremely detailed and was about 10 feet long and 7 feet wide, and the landing gear was made from all machined metals. According to visual effects supervisor Ariel Shaw, the miniature had to be launched about 40 feet up into the air to make it look like a real Boeing 747 exploded into a fireball. At the beginning, the board with all the flight times, the one that flips and spins, that was all CGI.
Interesting. It does look kind of weird.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, CGI. In the opening scene, Devon Sawa, who plays Alex, was supposed to pretend to be asleep, but he actually fell asleep for 4 hours on set.
That would be me. They're like, just pretend to sleep for a minute.
That
okay, good night.
happens so often.
Yeah.
Actors Kerr Smith and Sean William Scott took motion sickness pills before each plane crash take and were half asleep in these scenes. That's why they weren't really shown with a lot of close-ups.
Yeah, because they probably had to do that like dozens of times with that shaking.
Yeah, with it shaking and tilting.
Moving, yeah.
Oh, I would.
Yeah.
We would both. We don't do well just being a passenger in a car.
We can't even be in the car.
No, yeah, that's funny because whenever we go on road trips, we have to swap a lot.
Yeah.
Because the other one will get car sick. That would be us. We would be on drugs.
I max out about like an hour, and then I'm car sick. If I don't get to drive.
Especially if I have to read anything, a map, book.
We got sensitive brains and tongues.
I will puke. I can't even, like in a plane, I cannot read.
Yeah. Well, I've only been on a plane once, and it was horrible, so... Anyways.
Stop thinking about Final Destination when you're in a plane or driving a car or going on a roller coaster or at a racetrack.
Wow. Rude. In this movie, there are like 292 deaths, including the 287 passengers who we don't see, and then all of the survivors that we see get picked off one by one.
Yeah, you only see the 5 deaths, other than the explosion. Todd, who was strangled with the clothesline.
Terry was the one hit by a bus.
Real freaking hard. You wrote that.
No, I didn't. I copied it from a website.
Real freaking hard.
Oh, God.
The teacher, Valerie Luton, she was stabbed in the neck and then in the chest and then burned to death.
Mm-hmm. And then Billy Hitchcock, and this says 3/4 decapitation by some metal shrapnel.
And Carter, who was hit by the giant swinging sign.
As far as where to watch this, it's another one that's available on Amazon and Hulu. Wait, no, YouTube, not Hulu. You have to rent it. I said the
Thank you
wrong
for clarifying. It's on YouTube and Prime.
Yes.
You can rent them.
It's not free anywhere. For our next episode, we're keeping with the theme of women in horror, as well as keeping up with Black creatives for the month of February. So we're going to be talking about the 2014 horror The Babadook, which was written and directed by Jennifer Kent.
Be on the lookout. This Friday, we're going to be releasing a minisode.
This minisode is about something that's very important to both of us because we love horror, but it's really important to know what you're getting into, in my opinion, especially for people that are sensitive to certain subjects, which is why we always start the top of our episodes with trigger warnings for everything we can think of, so that if you are not in the right state to hear about something in that subject matter, you can know right off the bat. So there's a couple different websites, organizations we're just going to talk about that contribute to that.
Yeah, and there's a few different websites we're going to be discussing. But yeah, sometimes you're in the mood for Hellraiser and intense gore and stuff. But sometimes you're only really in the mood for like a Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
you want to have a laugh with your horror. And it's very important to check these websites. We actually check.
We checked last night, too.
Every time we watch a movie, we're checking.
We were debating between two different movies, and one of them came up as red on unconsenting media, which we'll talk more about in the minisode, meaning that had very intense scenes of sexual assault. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to watch this before I go to bed.
No, yeah. A movie like that, you need like a palate cleanser.
Exactly.
So yeah, these websites are important. So be on the lookout for that Friday morning.